Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Today's guest is Sarah Walton, an author, speaker, podcaster, and business mentor. Personally, the business coach interviews are some of my favorite conversations because the business and marketing side of health coaching is what eludes almost every aspiring health coach we meet, and we meet a lot of them. Our conversation with Sarah was really fun and funny, and chock full of great insights and actions. She tends to focus her messaging more toward women entrepreneurs, so coaches out there listening who identify as males, you may want to sit this one out. Though I still always think everyone could learn a ton about this topic. Our show sponsor is Primal Health Coach Institute. We're a health coaching school that provides aspiring and existing health and fitness professionals with the training, resources, and support to make a lucrative living changing lives. We've got thousands of graduates practicing unique coaching specialties and changing lives in countries all over the world. Visit primalhealthcoach.com to learn about all of our coaching and specialty certifications, including the Primal Health Coach Certification Course, the Primal Fitness Coach Certification Course, and our Master Coach Certification Course that satisfies the educational requirements to sit for the Health Coaching National Board Exam. We're in the process of launching several specialty courses so existing certified coaches from any school can earn specialty certs in topics like strength training for women, the human intestinal microbiome, functional therapeutic diets, or health coaching and medical practices. And enrollment is open for our 12-week hands-on business coaching program. Our Launch Your Coaching Business course will nurture you to create and sell your signature health coaching program. We have a lot going on, so keep checking back to our website and sign up to our email list to be the first to find out when all these outstanding new courses are open for enrollment. Visit primalhealthcoach.com and check it out. As you're listening to today's show, make sure to screen grab your podcast player and tag us in your Instagram stories at Health Coach Radio. And don't forget that the show notes for this episode and every episode of our podcast, 4 years and counting, can be found at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. Without further delay, let's get into the inspiring and energetic conversation about boldly stepping into your business with our guest, Sarah Walton.
All right, we got Sarah Walton with us today. How are you, Sarah?
I am awesome, Laura. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh, we love talking to other coaches, all different types of coaches, but coaches that specialize in coaching other coaches to get out there and make a difference and feel good about building a business. It's right in our wheelhouse, right, Erin?
Mm-hmm.
We're excited. So our first step with every conversation is to hear about you in your own words. Would you mind giving us a little bit of your origin story?
Yeah, sure. So mine actually started when I was 5, but I promise I won't make it long. So when I was 5, I saw the Nutcracker on TV and I said to my mom, that's what I want to do. Like these bodies, these movements, this dance was just gorgeous. And so I kind of held that dream alive for myself until I was 16. And I was able to try out for the dance company at school, which was like the biggest thing where I was raised in Sandy, Utah. We love Sandy, Utah. We love you guys, but it's not the busiest place in the world, right? So the dance team at high school is a big freaking deal. And I was so excited to try out and I got it and I made the team. I was so excited. And you guys know, I don't know if you're as old as me, but I was like doing the Paula Abdul chair throwing and the Janet Jackson pops. Yeah. Like, okay, bruises all over the body. Like this was some serious dancing going on here, right? Or chair throwing, whatever. But I made the team. I was so excited and happy. And then we got the letter that talked about how much the school jacket would cost and the dance costumes and the shoes and the travel costs. And I'm like looking at this sheet of paper. And I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience where you like watch yourself go through something. And I'm like, oh, that girl's having an experience. It was kind of like that. Like my stomach dropped through the floor and it was sort of surreal because there was no way we could afford this. I mean, there was no way. When I tell you we were poor, there were times that all we had was a half a loaf of bread that my mom had made from scratch and a jar of honey. Like the end. No condiments, like the end, like that kind of poor. And this was so upsetting because this is all I'd wanted. But what I did is I got a job at the local mall. And for those of you that don't know what a mall is, just watch Stranger Things. It's okay. We love you. Yes. So I got a job at like one of those little carts, where you sell tchotchkes that nobody needs, but it was the 80s. So that was cool. And so I got my first paycheck and I had to get that cashed. It was enough to put the deposits down for the costumes and the jacket and the shoes and all the things. So we're walking into the grocery store, which is the only place I could get this cashed. It's my mom and my younger brother. And as we're walking in to cash this check, my mom says, Sarah, can we get the strawberries? They're on sale. And I'm like, sure. I'm thinking of the strawberries. I'm thinking of my dance costume. I'm like, yes, we can do both those things. So I go to the service desk to get my check cashed. And my mom and my younger brother go to get the strawberries. And once I have the money in my hands, I'm looking for them in the express checkout lane and they're not there. And I'm like, okay, how long could it take? And then I start walking down the aisles and I see them in line with a cart full of groceries. And it's groceries I know my mom can't pay for. It's milk. It's like my brother's favorite breakfast cereal. It's bread. It's lunch meats, the damn strawberries. And I'm standing there in line, like they're in line, they're coming towards me. And I'm standing there with the cash in my hand. And I'm realizing I can pay for these groceries or I can pay for my costume, but I can't do both. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, I decided I could never take care of myself and my family. It would always be one or the other. And so I made my way through college. I went to UCLA. I moved to New York City. I've made it all the way up. Now I'm a mom. I've got kids, but I'm miserable. And I'm in my glass office. I just want to go home. My daughter called and said, Mommy, I miss you. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? And I worked with wonderful people. I was so lucky, but it just wasn't my thing. And I'm sitting there and I remembered that moment in the grocery store. And I realized a 16-year-old girl had been running my life because I was taking care of my family, but I wasn't taking care of myself. And I was like, wait a minute. And that was the day I quit. And it was not so hard to quit because every morning I would come in, and I don't want to exaggerate, but there'd be 2 or 3 people waiting to talk to me about how to get their staff in line, or I want to ask for a raise and I don't know how, or how could I write better? Why am I not communicating? Why aren't these people listening to? And I'm like, I just want to do that part. I don't want to do the rest of my job. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of what led me to be like, wait, I have this information as a woman in corporate America, understanding these profit plans and company culture and financial projections and all these conversations. I got kind of like this business school street cred going on. And I was like, there's never another woman in the room with me, ever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I need to start. This is ridiculous. It's not like this is proprietary information. This is 4th grade math. Like, what is happening? Why are there not women in this room with me? And that was the day that my business was born, because I stopped having a 16-year-old run my life. And I realized I'd been given all of this information and education on how to help other women start businesses and maintain them and grow them. So that's why I do what I do.
Wow. What a great story. I got like tingles.
Yeah, you do a great job of telling it. And what's interesting is, I'm jotting notes down as you're talking. And I'm thinking, oh, this is a classic learned scarcity kind of origin story, like scarcity mindset around money. But it's actually not. It's more this sacrificing the self, putting the self on the back burner because other things are more important. And I just simply can't take care of myself. I have all these other things I need to take care of. Which I don't know about anybody else listening, but it was like, ooh, that hits close to home. Because sometimes the scarcity mindset doesn't feel like that's not really what I'm dealing with. Yeah. But what you shared here, I think so many people can relate to that. This feeling of, what is this? This martyrdom almost? What do you think that is?
There's actually a phrase for it. There's a psychiatrist in New York City named Terry Cole who has coined the phrase, God love her, because I'm going to say it and you're going to go, oh yeah, I know what that is, even though I haven't defined it yet. And it's called high functioning codependence. And every time I say that, like if I'm speaking, all the women just start nodding. They're like, I have that. I'm like, I still haven't defined it, but we know, you hear it and you're like, yes. She's just so brilliant. She has a great book called Boundary Boss, by the way, which I recommend every woman on the planet listen to or read. And the idea is that we as women are so freaking capable. Yeah. And I always tell people, if you were born into a female body, right? The connective tissue in our brains between the right and left hemisphere, there's more connective tissue between the 2 hemispheres than there is in a male-born body. And that's kind of what allows us to like multitask at the level we do. Like any woman's like, yeah, could you put the chicken on? Did you get that email? Yeah, did you, honey? I said yes. They like, and you watch us, and every time I do that, people laugh, but they're like, yeah, that was me like 3 minutes ago before we got on this podcast, right? It's like, yeah, that's what we do. And that extra connective tissue actually allows that to happen, and men don't have it, right? And this is where, I mean, I love men. Please, this is like a good thing sometimes that they can focus like this. But if you ever done like you got a baby on a hip, you got the garbage over here, dinner's on the stove, and you're like, could you help me do something? And the guy's like, well, I'm watching TV. Because it's like, and you're like, are you freaking kidding me? And it's not like, and I share this because I don't want people to get mad at men, but it's like they have this incredible ability to focus on one thing. Yeah. And they watch and they cannot. And that's actually something I wish we had sometimes. I wish they had what we have. I wish there was a little bit more of this distributed better, but it is this ability to do all these things at once. And because we have this ability, we are responsible for all of the invisible work that makes everything else work. Mm-hmm. Right. And as soon as I say invisible work, I always get text messages or phone calls. People are like, oh my God, I was making the bed. I was doing the laundry. I was doing the grocery shopping. I was doing the meal planning. I was talking about this. I was taking care of that. It's invisible work. The world doesn't work unless we do it. And what happens, the codependence piece comes in when we hear crazy words. Erin, you just like went right in on this, which is we hear crazy things like, oh, she's so selfless. Mm-hmm. That phrase makes my skin crawl. Mm-hmm. We are actually rewarding women for having no self. Mm-hmm. And that is really at the heart of that entire, and we get rewarded for it, hence the codependence. Mm-hmm. And I love talking about this because I think it's going to take other women saying, sisters, sit down. It's all right. Are you okay? And watch what happens when you ask other women how they're doing. Just watch. How are you doing? Oh, the kids are like this. This is like this. That's like that. No, I asked how you are. And they'll be like, what? I don't know. Like, we're not there. And I think that is really something that's part of our society that's ingrained, that we're taught from a very young age. And what comes with it is this idea that as long as everybody else is okay, I don't like my emotions don't matter. And we hear it with little girls like, oh, don't cry. Where's your pretty face? Your emotions are making me uncomfortable. Please don't do that. Your emotions don't matter. I need to be comfortable. And it starts there and it just spans out from there.
And I wonder how much of this, so I was, there's a friend of mine from our neighborhood. We take walks every morning together. And so she has a small little side business. She does hair out of her house, and I've got my business. And we've been talking about, I just sort of bring her up to speed, just kind of where I am, because I moved and I'm restructuring everything. And then she keeps talking about how our other neighbor who just launched her own bakery keeps telling her, you should start an LLC. You should like be legit and kind of start your own business. And she's so overwhelmed with everything else in her life, keeping up with the house, keeping up with the kids, all these other things, that she's like, I don't think that's so overwhelming to me. And so this is where so many women, I think, get trapped into settling for something less than what they're capable of, that's truly going to feed them and make them feel, what's the word I guess themselves, right? Rather than so-and-so's mom or so-and-so's wife or so-and-so's neighbor, I'm me and this is what I do. They're just reluctant to take that on because it is big. It's a little scary because you're putting yourself out there, to be fair, right? But also, to your point, who's going to do all the other stuff? I was having this conversation with my husband and I love him because he's begun to recognize it. He's like, babe, just slap me upside the head. Tell me you need help, because he said, I am selfish and I will sit on the couch and watch football while you're doing the dishes. But, he recognizes this. And he recognizes that he needs to pitch in more and do more, because I just sort of silently do it, because if I don't, here's the thing, no one else does. Okay. So that was a long intro into how do we fix that? How do we help bring other people in? So it's not this, like, if I don't do it, nobody else does. Boy, my friend Molly and I were just saying, it's just easier to do it myself because of the grief I get when I ask for help. In my case, my husband doesn't do that. It's the kids or whatever, but not everybody has a husband like mine.
Boy, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
I want to add a little texture to this because I want you to answer it as well. But I was thinking about it from the perspective of my previous life corporately. And when you were talking about your corporate life, this feeling that, like, and I don't want to get too much into this glass ceiling conversation, but it is sort of like a feeling of being exploited. I'll do all the tasks that need to get done that are kind of behind the scenes, like the little troll under the bridge, but not receiving the recognition or the appreciation for having done them. They need to get done. I will do them because nobody else will. Same thing, right? Like this translates into all kinds of arenas.
Yeah, no, it's everything. Women are trained to do this from a very young age. And it has society work, right? Corporate gets to clean out all the tasks no one wants to do. Everyone else has their laundry done and their meals made or whatever else, we all do every day, all day. And it has society work. So there's a couple of things that we can do. One, as women, we need to have this conversation, right? Because we are the ones who are going to change this. And that's why I think it's so critical that we're honest with each other. This idea of the perfect mom, the perfect business owner, the perfect whatever, pick a thing. We got to knock that off. Like, I don't know who the heck is perfect. And I think the flip side of this is also that no one's special. Like any one of us, right, can get a diagnosis, can get a phone call. This is the sheriff. I've got your kid. Like oh my gosh, pick a thing. Like none of us is special. And we need to show up and remind each other of that because there's so much shame around this, right? So when a woman starts to feel like, what is this, right? That moment. And Erin, when you're like, I'll do all of it, but nobody even know, like when we start to feel that way, to actually acknowledge that's an appropriate response. Because instead, what we've all been doing to each other and for each other is shoving it down and acting like everything's okay. That's not helpful. And or having a conversation like, oh my God, she's so selfless. Like, no, we need to go, dude, is she okay? That's a ridiculous amount of work for one person to take on. Where are the rest of us? That's the conversation to have. And I like to have this conversation. I'll just do a school lunch example. I don't know if anybody listening or if you guys have ever done like the school lunch volunteering for your kids, right? It's my favorite. There could be a mom who's been there for 345 million days in a row, right? Like she's there every day doing whatever. And a dad walks in, shows up for 20 minutes and doles out some sandwiches. And everyone's like, oh my God, he's the best. I can't believe it's so great you're here. Oh my God, this is so, what is that? And the woman who's been there every day, wallpaper, right? That's the kind of stuff we need to start working on for each other. And we need to start calling this what it is, which is just an unfair distribution of labor. It's just not okay. We're a community. So when it comes to supporting with the kids or spouses, it's like, no, we all live here. We all take care of this. It's not on mom. That's not how this is going to work. And for those of you that have children, I highly recommend a book called The Gift of Failure. One of my all-time favorite books, and definitely, Laura, you want to give this to your neighbor for sure. It's so helpful, but it's really instructive on teaching the children how to do laundry. By age 4 or 5, they can do their own laundry. If they don't have what they need for their sports or their dance, they learn and they won't forget it again. They should be making their own lunches. They should be cleaning up their own dishes. And they should be helping with dinner. And that is my absolute 100% belief, because we don't want to produce humans out in the world that think magic fairies come along and make everything beautiful, because that's not real life either. And it's a rude awakening when you have your first apartment and you're like, oh my God, those dishes are still there. Why? Right? Like, no. We need to be producing functioning human beings out in the world who understand that when you are part of a home, when you're part of a community, we all work together, and that's just the way it is. And if we can start to like sort of have that conversation, not in anger or in blame, but in matter of fact, you live here, you work here. That's the way this goes.
Yeah. I love that, everybody's got to kind of pull their own weight here in order for things to function properly. And, I remember my husband and I having a conversation, like, what happens if I get hit by a bus one day? What are you going to do? You know what? We have life insurance on me. I have no life insurance on my husband. You know why? Because I know I can get by without him. Isn't that terrible? No. That's a terrible way to think about it. But like, I would be devastated. I'd likely never get married again. But like, I will be able to hold my, excuse my language, my shit together.
Yeah.
He would be a disaster. He would have to hire copious amounts of help, or he will move home with his mom. We had this conversation, but this is, I think, where this is coming back for him now. Like, I need to learn how to do this. So he told me, he's like, you know what? On the nights that you have your work calls, I'm going to cook dinner.
That's lovely.
I don't know what I'm going to make. So might not taste good, but I'm going to cook dinner, because this realization has finally sort of set in. Right. I don't know. I mean, we kind of went off on this huge tangent, but like
well,
pulling
yes
this
and
back
no, because
towards
it's all relevant.
Yeah. It is all relevant. So if you've got, women who are looking to, whether it's starting their own business or gosh, just move in the direction they want to go, whatever that means, be the person who they want to be professionally, personally, or what have you. If we're constantly having to do all the quiet sort of back end, no one sees it kind of work, which means now in a day that's got 24 hours, 8 of which we're hopefully sleeping. Really, at the end of the day, we've maybe got 4 hours to do anything that's going to move us closer to where we want to go. And that's probably being generous.
Very. Yeah. I mean, and a fun stat to your point about life insurance. Do you guys know what the average housewife costs to replace on an annual basis if she's not there? It's $185,000 a year to the family if the housewife is gone. Oh, that's what that job is worth to the family, right? And we don't even acknowledge it. We act like it's like, oh, I guess she's not working. What in the actual, right? Right. So this is a conversation we all need to have together. I think it's so great what you just shared. And you reminded me of a post I saw the other day. It made me laugh so hard. A woman was talking about her male coach. And she said, yeah, no, he told me that the way he was able to write his book while he was working full time is that, he did an extra 3 hours in the morning, an extra 3 hours after dinner. And that's when I realized he had a wife. I was like, oh my God, but it's true. And that's got to stop. It just has to stop. Like we're all in this together. This, like knowing how to take care of the house and cook. This is not proprietary information. This is what all of us need to chip in and do together.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's think about how we can bring this around to our topic, which is coaches, entrepreneurs, people looking to leave something that is unfulfilling, because that's a big part of your origin story. Just this sort of light bulb moment. What am I doing? I have all these skills. I'm able to juggle my right and left hemispheres of my brain nimbly. Why am I not putting this? Wait, I can put this to work to do something for myself and use my gifts and my preferences. You had preference for sort of the helping people solve business problems. That was your favorite thing to do when that showed up on your plate. So what's the transferable message here to our burgeoning entrepreneur listeners?
Such a great question. And I think it's exactly what you just said. It's what we've been talking about coupled with the idea, right? So you may have this amazing idea to start this business and get going. And one of the first roadblocks for most women is this is really selfish of me to do, right? Like I have to put everybody else first. And that is usually the first thing we all have to get over. I mean, to your point, Laura, we got like 4 hours, really. Like by the time we've taken care of everything, if we have, a big family or even a small family, that can be the case. But even more than that is this idea that this is somehow wrong of me to do, to focus like this. And that translates very quickly into making money doing it, right? Because if we've been doing invisible work or it's been expected, even if we've never had that experience, and Erin, it was maybe more like yours where it's like, I'll do the tasky task nobody wants to do. Once you flip that to this is the business I want to do and I should get paid for this, it's kind of this minefield for most of us to sort of navigate through of like, not only is this what I'm here to do and I love it and it's wonderful, I should be doing it and there should be no guilt around it. That's where we start to get a little bit fuzzy. And I think this is why, while you guys were like, this is a tangent, I'm like, not really, because it really goes into the mindset of how most of us were raised and sort of the societal air we've been breathing, that we're not supposed to want this. We're not supposed to have ambition. We're not supposed to really want to go after what we want, especially if we've created it. And that can look, I'd love to dissolve that in an hour-long conversation, right? Like, let's get that out of the way real fast. Like, I don't want to keep us here. But I think it's real. And I think it's something we need to be honest about and pay attention to.
Yeah. You know what I thought of as you're explaining that? I think about somebody who's going to leap. I'm using air quotes for anybody listening, because I don't personally believe in this idea of leaping, but let's back burner that for now. But so let's say you're going to leap into your dream career. Maybe that's health coaching. Well, one of the struggles, blocks, hurdles that people come up against is, and I think it's sort of subconscious, which is, but I have a job now and they pay me to do these tasks.
Right.
And that could be tasky tasks or it could be important. It doesn't matter. You're receiving a paycheck to do a thing or some things. And, you said this idea of like leaping into entrepreneurship, leaping into a passion project feels selfish. So do we believe it's then selfless to drive into work every day, sit in that desk and get that paycheck? Do we have some programming like this is the selfless thing to do? I'm an accountant at
it's the responsible thing to do. Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I've never quite framed it that way, Erin, but I think that's brilliant. I think that is correct. It's the responsible thing.
Right. I wonder how much of this comes out of like our baby boomer parents, for those of us that are kind of the age
Huge.
that, yeah.
Huge. But when you think of it that way, it's like, wait a second, it's not selfless at all to go to work.
Yeah.
I'm not being selfless. I'm not some kind of hero sitting in a desk for 8 hours a day. What? But it's interesting. It's that programming that's pretty deep. It's hard to bring to the front of your mind and really look at. Right. Deprogramming this stuff. I think Laura's point is probably pretty spot on, at least in my story. My boomer parents taught me that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen. But I think that's one of the mental blocks. What I'm getting at is this failure to launch, which we see a lot of people do, failure or massive delay in launching their coaching practices because, well, but I do this other thing and they pay me and I have a family to feed or whatever it is. And that's the selfless move. It's selfish of me to now chase my dreams. And that's there's just no meat on that bone. It's just simply not true.
No, it is really heartbreaking, actually. And I think, it's very basic. I mean, basic as in, I'm going to say something and you guys are going to be like, really? That's it? But basic in that we as human beings, right, we are so hardwired to chase pleasure and avoid pain. And avoiding pain is much more powerful than chasing pleasure, right? We just have this programming. Right. So what happens is, back to the scarcity conversation, Erin, it's not so much scarcity as it is massive fear.
Yeah.
That if I stop getting that paycheck, I don't have what it takes to replace it. And that's actually what's at work, right? Because let's be honest, we can make money doing anything. And I really love talking about that, where I just say to people, just take a breath right now and look at the room around you. Just look at everything that's in the room around you. Like I can see my camera, I can see my laptop, I can see my lights, my mic, a couple paintings. Every single thing around you was someone's idea. And then you gave them money for it. Like everything. And what that tells us is money is infinite, because as many as ideas as if you have, you can go sell. Like this is a fallacy, this BS idea that money is finite. And if you don't get money from a job you hate, you're going to screw over everybody you love. That is not accurate, but it's very deep programming, to your point, Erin. And I think as we start to examine that as women, especially because we do take on work we don't get paid for all the time, all the time. Right. And one of the reasons we can feel like, well, I can't leave this job that pays me because I have no other time because of all the invisible work I'm doing as well. So where the heck am I supposed to fit in my passions? And I get it. Like I say that with so much empathy and so much love and zero judgment. You can see how this happens, how that seems so real. And it's really like, oh my God, but if I don't get that paycheck, what's going to happen? And I would invite people to flip it to, if I don't have that paycheck, what's going to happen? Like you can flip that like, oh my God, I bet I'd be amazing. Because those 8 hours where you're being miserable, if you pour that into something you love, you blow your own dang mind. You really, really will. And it happens really fast. And I say to people sometimes, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but a lot of the times when I'm working with my clients, health comes into play. And usually it's around like, I'm just eating really crappy food at night. It's super unhealthy. Like I don't feel good. And I'm like, that's not acceptable. You're a CEO. You have to take care of this vessel. If you don't, you have no business. I'll be like, good. So I want you to go get all of your clothes that are a size bigger and you're going to donate them. And you cannot buy anything in your current size, right? And what we're doing is we're creating leverage. It's like, oh crap. And I want you to tell 3 people you've got this goal or whatever it is, right? And then we start to associate pain with those foods. The pain of not being able to run the business, the pain of not fitting into clothes, the pain of not hitting a goal. Let's associate that to those foods. Let's get on that, right? This is creating leverage. And then over here, we have the pleasure. What would happen if your health is amazing? What would it be like for you to buy size 8 jeans or 4, whatever the heck you want? I don't care. But what does that feel like for you, and get that pleasure going? Once we start to do that, we've created leverage. And the same thing is possible when someone quits their day job to start something they love. That is massive amount of leverage, right? So we want to associate pain with not taking the right actions to grow the business. Yeah. And if we can associate pain with that, suddenly watching Netflix and eating Skittles instead of sending out emails or reaching out or making the calls or doing what you know you need to do, gets real easy to make the right decisions. And also if you start chasing why you want to do this business. And I don't love there's so much of that. What's your why? I hate that. It makes me crazy because it's so much more profound than that. It is like, I was just doing this with my clients. It's like, my dad's health is failing a little bit and he lives in LA and I live on the East Coast. And like, I have such a big why right now. Like there's some goals we have. I look up there because I have my goals over there. But we have these such big goals in our business. And it's because I want to repaint the inside of my dad's house and I want to get him a new fence and I want to make sure his floorboards are all flat. And like all these things that is such a big why for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about bags. It's not about shoes. Those are awesome. Love them. That's not the deal right now. And when we're working with clients who are so scared to take that leap, I always say, be responsible. Don't be crazy. I'm not a big fan of like, believe and the money will come. No, it's like, you got to set it up in a way that's appropriate and proper, but you got to get your head on straight.
Yeah.
Because you and we all know, the three of us know, how many people do you know have blown up their businesses in 1 year? I mean, we've seen it happen, and that's intense focus. And that's a reassociation in the brain of what's going to cause you pain and what's going to actually provide pleasure. And we have to be really aware of what we have associated to those two things. That was a long answer to your short question. Sorry, Erin.
No, but so let's like in practical terms, so during this pandemic for the virus that shall go unnamed, because we're sick and tired of talking about it, an interesting thing happened is we've seen that they don't call it the Great Resignation for no good reason, right? We've seen a lot of people either so burnt out because they were working and they were mistreated and overworked and like, what the hell, right? That they're moving on to other things. And then there's others that are like, oh, okay, so I can work from home. Now I got all this free time. I don't have to commute and blah, 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 blah. So there's those people. And then there's those people that are like, wait a minute, maybe my job isn't essential. Maybe I can actually go out and do something else. I'm going to use, you know what I mean? So that this has been kind of in the back of my brain for years, but it wasn't until recently that I really started to think, maybe this is doable. But also from a health perspective, has never been a bigger audience. There has never been a bigger pool of people that need our help than right now. From the standpoint of, I guess they've always needed our help. A lot of people didn't recognize they needed our help until now. So now the opportunity is ripe and it's growing like a weed. So we need to capture it. So what I would love, if you don't mind, or maybe some sort of practical like steps for folks that are, okay, so I'm ready to let go of this day job, but really I need X amount of money. So I got to build a bridge to get there. I'm your client. I'm like, I've got my website figured out. I graduated from a school, I kind of have this program figured out, but now I'm stuck. What do I do?
Such a great question. And I mean, how many people could raise their hands being like, oh, that's me. She's talking about me. Yeah. And there's a couple of things. I mean, one, if you haven't actually worked with anybody yet, just call a friend and get that under your belt. And I say that to people because of something in psychology that's called the confidence competence loop.
Yeah.
So you want to get your confidence going, understanding that you are really good at this. So you really want to increase your confidence by understanding how competent you are. And the more you do that, the better this becomes. Now, don't work with a friend for free forever. Work with a friend for free long enough that you start to understand you're really good at that. If you've already done that, the next thing to do is to understand how to sell. And the most important thing here is to understand what somebody needs to hear in order to find the possibility you're offering. And that is so challenging for most people because you make sales about yourself.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, but they're going to think I'm salesy. They don't care about you. I love you. You're wonderful. I'm so glad you're a health coach. God love the health coaches. They don't care about you. Mostly, especially in health, people are ashamed. They're embarrassed. They're terrified you're judging them. And I mean, I don't know. Have you guys ever like booked a discovery call with a coach? I mean, that is so scary. Like it really, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to want it. And what if I can't afford it? Blah, blah, blah. You're not thinking about them. You're thinking about you. And you're like, God, I hope this is the answer. Please let this be the answer. And so in order to get to someone who's in that situation, you have to talk about them and you have to understand them. And I think one of the best ways to do this outside of a sales call and really talking to somebody and asking them what they've tried and what their pain points are, I think that's so important. And just being open and honest with someone and not trying to sell them, but instead just listening, is really asking, if you are someone in the position, Laura, that you just described, is just today, just take a deep breath and say, where's my next client? I know it sounds funny, but just breathe. What's she doing right now? Did she just tuck her muffin top into her jeans? Did she just get a diagnosis? Did she just try to run after her kids and her chest hurt? Do her knees hurt all the time? Is she just feeling blah? Like, where is she right now? And what does she need to hear to know? Not that, you're here to save the day, but what does she need to know so that she can believe she'll be okay? And if you can start to communicate that to people, you will knock out anyone else that they would ever want to talk to. And you'll notice I never once said, call me. I'm the best. I'm the one you need to call. I'm the best coach, because no, I know what you're going through. And it doesn't have to stay this way. There is hope for you. I believe in you. All you have to say. And I know most coaches, business coaches, call to action, DM me, do the thing. It's like, you know what? Somebody's freaking the heck out. Let them know you're a safe space first. Can you just breathe for a second? And it's hard. I know when you need to make money and you're like, but I need the next sale. I know it's hard, but this is like a long-term game. This is not a quick fix.
Yeah.
This is a game that takes some time, and you've got to set yourself apart as a heart, as a human, as somebody who cares about the people that want to work with you. And I think that's the best way to do it, is ask yourself where she or he is right now and what are they going through and how can you let them know it can be okay?
Yeah, that's really brass tack stuff. I do want to explore, because I think the question that might come up for people is, cool, but how do I know what that is? How do I know what my ideal client is thinking, feeling, needing right now? But I was just thinking from a personal perspective, when I first started my coaching business, I was so transparent. I was like, here's what you get. Here's how much it costs. Here's who I work with. Here's who I don't work with. I was like, if you need me, here's what I do. Mash that button to work with me. Let's go. And then through programming and hearing different business coaches say different things, like take your pricing off your website. Don't let anybody in the front, you got to have that gatekeeper discovery call. Like, you said, so I have to be this untouchable, celeb that people are clamoring to work with. It always felt out of integrity for me. And it always took away this beautiful transparency and the safety that I wanted my ideal client to feel. I just wanted them to know that, hey, if you need the help that I can offer, here's where it is, here's how much it costs, figure it out. If it works for you, I'd love to work with you. So that's interesting. It just brought me back to thinking maybe I should just return to that, because it felt more in integrity.
Well, how did it affect your business, if I may ask? Did you notice a difference when you went to the gatekeeper model?
I don't think I noticed any difference.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say. It's hard for me to know. It's hard for me to, because it was a time when my business was kind of ramping up anyway. So hard for me to measure that. But it would be an interesting experiment now established to see what happens if I just change that, just for fun.
Yeah.
Okay. But so this idea of authentically being on the call as the space holder for the client who's got this very specific struggle and is dying for the solution and hoping that you're the one who has it. Coaches want to know, how do they know what that is?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you're quiet for a second, and I think I don't mean that to be a canned answer, like just meditate on it. I don't mean it like that at all. But it's like, we're so busy doing so many things, right? We're worried about social media, emails, websites, What does my client want? And I totally get how that's a question. And I think really, for the most part, right? I don't know, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but most coaches, most of us, we teach that which we need the most, which means we've gone through the struggle. We're attracted to the type of coaching we do because we went through something and we want to pay the solution forward. We get the experience. And I think I'm just making sure I'm telling you the truth. I have yet to run into somebody where that's not the case. I'm pretty sure that's right. Who's worked with me directly. I think that's correct. And so if we're actually still enough to remember what it was like to be looking frantically for a solution, you have the answers. You're just not connected to them anymore because you're in a different place and you're doing so many things. So it is that moment of, when did I decide to become a health coach? Like, what was that for me? Why did I sign up for that certification? What was happening for me? You'll find it. And it's like, we also, when I say we're not all that special, we all really do have the same struggles. People always joke, they're like, how did you know I was thinking that? And I was like, because I thought it. Like, it's like we're not that original. I love us. We're all wonderful, but we're really not that original. We have such shared humanity. And so if we stop and think for a moment what it's like to feel hopeless, to have just, like I said, gotten the call, stuffed the cake down your face or pretended if you eat the donut when nobody sees it didn't count. Like all the things we've all done, right? When you're in that moment and you just feel so hopeless. You're like, this is never going to get better. I don't know what to do. And you sit down on Google. You know that feeling. And if we're all honest and we sit down, and the market research, quote unquote, everybody does. I just roll my eyes at it at this point. It's so transparent. Everybody knows what you're doing and it just doesn't feel right anymore. I don't think market research, what would make you hire a health coach? It's like, guys, please, yes, ask people.
Sure.
Let's get back to honesty. Let's get back to what drives human behavior, and it's avoiding pain or chasing pleasure. So if you take a second to understand what that pain is and have the empathy and the compassion, you can find it within yourself. And if you're not sure, or you are feeling a little wobbly about that, because maybe it was a long time ago, or maybe you never have stuffed a donut in your face when no one was looking, God bless you. Anyway, but if that's the case, right, then you can ask a couple people. But I would ask close friends. I would ask people that are like you. I would ask people that you would want to work with. And ask them directly, like, hey, could I interview you for a second? I do that all the time. I'm about to launch a new course called the Abundance Academy. And I interviewed 10 of my favorite people on this planet who are friends. These are not celebrities. These are people I know and love. And I watch their actions and their behavior. I'm like, what drives you to do that? When did you start doing that? How did you think of that? How hard is it for you to do? I mean, those are like the best questions. Everybody gets so excited to answer them. That's market research. Like, be with people. Find out what people need from you and be there to give it to them if you're able to do that.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about sales. A sales conversation, if done right, to your point, has nothing to do with you. Zero, right? So, when you're having a conversation with a client, you're trying to find out more about them. And it's what's going to trigger I need to work with that person is their firm and fundamental belief that you care and that you listen and that you get them and that what you offer is for them. It has nothing to do with you. So you've got to take your own ego out of it and realize that, if they say no, more often than not, it's also still not about you. It's about them and kind of where they are right now. They're just not ready. They're not a buyer. Now, that being said, if you spent all this time pushing and talking about yourself and sales and isn't this great? Okay, then maybe it is about you. But if you spend your time asking questions, treating it more like a coaching conversation, being exceptionally curious about them and their journey and what they've been through and what they want, and that's interesting. Why do you want that? And what's that going to be like for you? And would it be helpful if, we were able to accomplish this together? Then if it's still a no, it has nothing to do with you. And you got to let that go. And it's usually, in my experience, and not right now. They either don't quite have the money figured out right yet. They don't have the confidence in their own self, right? They're not really all that sold on the value of the investment in them. It's not you. And so if you can go into a sales or a discovery call conversation and remove the fear of rejection because it has nothing to do with you, then it's just like any other coaching conversation. And chances are you probably moved that client a little bit closer to a yes than when you sat down with them. They just probably weren't there yet. And I just want to, from someone who's been in sales for 25 years, this over time, you begin to realize these things when you treat every person you speak to with curiosity and compassion.
Every time. Absolutely. Every time. And I always say, when we make sales about us, it's like a doctor walking past somebody who's bleeding out, right? They're like, well, I don't want to be salesy. It's like, are you kidding me? This person needs you. Like, get off your butt and go help them. It's like, what are you doing? And I think I always love that because I like to make sales fun. And you can remember that and go, oh my God, that's crazy. I'm so sorry. What did you need today? How can I help you? I'm so curious why you booked this call. And all of a sudden, all the pressure is off. And I love when a client calls me, they're like, oh my God, I just sold a $10,000 package and I laughed the whole time. I'm like, there you go. Like, that's because that's the truth of sales anyway, is it's an exchange. And it really, when it works well, like when you're not overcharging, because that feels creepy, and you're not undercharging, which also feels creepy, by the way, when you've hit that moment of just exact exchange and someone is so excited about what's about to happen for them and the investment they just made in themselves to change their lives. Like, I don't know how it gets any better than that. And you never want that to be about you, right? It's like, it is a massive celebration about their own humanity and the courage and the excitement that they have just allowed to enter their lives because they said yes. That's the point. That's the celebration. And when we live like that, it is astonishing how much faster the sales come in because people absolutely love working with you and they listen to what you tell them because in that initial conversation, to your point, Laura, they got coached. And if you do a sales call with that level of curiosity, you're basically auditioning. Right.
Yeah.
You are coaching someone through that call for them to see how you coach. And you may not be the right coach for them. And sometimes you just have to get that. Like, I don't like all the dentists I've ever had. I leave some of them. They're not my people, and that's okay. There are 7 billion, almost 8. It's a lot of people on this planet. And you need to work with what? Maybe 300 people a year, maybe 80. Like, chill out. You're going to be fine. There's going to be the next one. It's okay. There's no shortage of humans who will need you.
Yeah. It makes it fun too. I feel like it's hard to, I think for new coaches to consider that this could be fun. Once you have clarity on here's exactly who I help and how, and if I happen to get on the phone with a person who's that, it's so fun to be in conversation with them. And I want to coach them. And I want that person also to experience what it's like to be coached on the discovery call. Like I teach this in our advanced coaching course. Like that's one of the first things I teach in our advanced coaching course is the discovery call. It's like, sorry to break it to you, but that's a coaching call. I hesitate to call it the enrollment call. I love this idea of like, let me give this person something actionable to take away from this call. Whether they decide to work with me or not. I mean, most of the time, 95% of the time they do decide to work with me because they've never been coached before. They've, first of all, never had a conversation with somebody who really understands them. They've never been coached. And the experience of being coached is so powerful that it's almost like they can't wait. Like that's what they've been looking for. They just didn't know it. So there's something really fun. And I think to close the loop on my thought here, it's also easy. I'm putting that in air quotes as well for those air quotes today. It's easier if this person is who you were.
Right.
Yes.
It's just not easy when this person is so far out of your realm that you're speaking a different language. So just really double down on who you were. And I know the question that we get from very specific, there's a specific group of people that we engage with occasionally as educators who say, but I didn't have a health journey. Was never overweight. I was never sick. No, you had something.
Right.
You wanted to hit a sub 2-hour half marathon, or that was your health struggle, right? Whatever it is. I don't know. You had something. Just double down on that, reconnect with your story, and then know that that's somebody else's story. And that's your person. And I always use the anecdote of this poor guy who I'll just continue to throw under the bus, 26-year-old kid who wanted to work with menopausal women because there's just so many. It was just a huge market. He's like, there's just such a huge market opportunity there. And it's like, I'm not sure, sir, if that's going to be great.
Just no.
Anyway, lots of thoughts there, just lots of sort of brain dumping thoughts. But I just really wanted to circle back and reiterate that the discovery call is a coaching call and they're fun if you hit it right.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And you know what? And what a gift to give somebody too, even if they do say no, like what a gift. And that I love to remind people of that who are like, but I don't want to be salesy. I just want to help people. I'm like, great, go help people then and watch the sales come in. Because I think that's right. Yeah. I love that you shared that, Erin. That's so great.
Yeah. I was thinking, I told this story in our last interview, but there's a fellow that I follow on the socials. He's a productivity guru. He's really well known in that space. And that's an area that I really geek out on. It's sort of a core values thing for me. So everything he puts out, his podcast, his e-newsletter, every post on Twitter, I devour it. I learn from it. And I buy everything he sells.
Wow.
He puts it all out there for free, and I buy everything he sells because I trust this guy. He's giving it away for free, and that feels good to me as a consumer. Yes. And maybe that comes back to my scarcity. It's like, well, if this guy's willing to give it away, I trust him. I trust him. He can have my money. Versus this sort of like keeping things behind curtains and this untouchable thing. It doesn't feel friendly. It doesn't feel like the kind of relationship I want to invest in.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I'm 100% in the same boat with you. And I kind of, this is why I love to be a coach, right? Because let's be honest, we can pretty much Google anything right now. I call it GTS. It's called Google that shit, right? Just go Google it. Like, come on. We can pretty much Google anything. That is very different from being coached through an experience. And I always tell my clients, like, don't be afraid to put it all out there. To your point, Erin, of this guy, just put it out there. They're not going to do it.
Right.
They're not going to do it. So don't worry about it. And they'll go, She gave me everything. I didn't do it. And then they're going to call you and go, can you make sure I do this? You go, yep, that's my job. Not only that, they don't have the same, it's not the same as going through the experience with you of like hitting a massive roadblock, right? Getting worried if they're trying to not drink, that there's a massive office party or whatever, to have somebody to reach out to. You can't even put a price on that. That's everything. And that's why I always tell people, don't be afraid to put your best stuff out there. Pretend that you're creating a movie trailer. They always put the best stuff in the movie trailers. We know the whole movie by the time we watch a movie trailer, and we still go. Like, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. I love that you shared that.
That is a great analogy.
Yeah.
So tell me, so how do you work with people? So if someone's going to work with you, ideally, like what stage of the game are they in at this point? I don't even want to put words in your mouth. So tell me a little bit about the type of client that comes to work for you. Where are they and how do you serve them? What's your focus?
Thank you so much. And so for the one-on-one clients are usually people who are like, I think I sort of know what I want to do. Get me out of this job. Or I started 20 minutes ago and I'm totally floundering. Right. So usually one-on-one with me, and most of my one-on-one clients stick with me for about 2 years, which I love, right? Because they change, right? They go through, they hit a new level and they're like, oh crap, don't leave me or whatever. Right. So I love doing that, that type of work of helping somebody. I call it the trifecta: your experience, your expertise, and your talents. How do we package that? Like, how much are you charging? What's that going to look like? Who do you want to work with? And getting that handled and getting that up. Everything from the LLC onward. And then I have my sales mastermind, which I just absolutely love. This is my signature course. It's a 6-month coaching program. It's a group coaching program, and I only do it once or twice a year. And it is only about the art of sales from soup to nuts. And we go through how to send out email sequences, how to write. I do copy editing with people, all of that stuff. I just absolutely love it. And then for those who actually might be a little bit further along, but just need the ongoing support, I have something that I do called sprints. Where it's one goal for one quarter and you sprint towards it. And it's always around business or maybe revenue goals or things like that you have. And you just sort of need to touch in and have the group know that these are your goals for the quarter. So much fun.
Ooh, that's cool.
Cool.
I never heard something like that before. Sprint. So one goal for one quarter. What could that be? Like, what's an example? Like, I want to launch a group program or an online course or something.
Yeah. Or I want to hit my first $20,000 month, or I want my first, I do want to do my first group program. And I always encourage them to put one life goal in there. There's like a major goal, and then there's the goals that have to get accomplished to cause that. Right. So sometimes what'll happen is one of the goals is I'm going to get my children to do their laundry so I can hit this business goal. Right. So there'll be some goals under that. And I always say we are not compartmentalized. You know, how your business is going is how your personal life is going, and they affect each other greatly. So make sure as you're setting this business goal, you understand what's going to need to be, aligned for that to happen in all aspects of your life. So the goals really do vary, but it's so much fun. We have a really great time in there.
I love that. And what I want health coaches listening to is, and kind of how you're working with your clients to achieve various goals and work towards where they're going. I didn't once hear you say, like, I write their business plan for them, or I show, so health coaching, it's about exactly this. It's about creating the change necessary in order for people to accomplish the goal they want to do. So the example you used was, I got to get my kids to do their laundry so I can accomplish this other thing. If it's a client that's trying to be able to get to the gym 2 days a week, what are the smaller goals underneath that need to happen in order for them to be able to get to the gym for those, or whatever it is? I want to have my lunch pre-made the night before. All right, well, what needs to happen that night? What do you need somebody else to do so that you have the time to make your lunch in advance, or whatever the case may be? We get so many health coaches that get caught up in the minutia of what they can't do or what they don't know that stop them from really moving, rather than focusing in on, what resource do I need? What do I need to learn? What skill do I need to develop in order to be, and that's what coaches do. And it sounds to me like that's what you do.
Yes, it is. And I mean, look, we do the financial goals, right? So if somebody says, I want to make $20,000 a month, I'm like, that is fantastic. What do you need to sell every week to make that happen? What do you need to sell every day to make that happen? And how is it packaged? And why do you want 20,000? Like, what is that about? Right. Because there's these weird things people throw out there. Like, I want 6 figures. I want 7. I'm like, why? Like, what does it even mean to you? Right. And I really press hard on that. And a lot of the times the goal changes. Like that was something they heard somebody else say.
Yeah.
But they haven't taken the time to figure out what they want. And that's everything, Laura, to your point, like we can do business plans so we're blue in the face. I don't know what that does for anybody because that business plan is just going to sit on your desk and you're not going to know what to do next. And that's not helpful.
Right. No, unless you're going to actually execute on it. That's one thing that we've been talking about at our team that I was saying I would love to help people think through like a business plan that's not just a piece of paper with these goals on it. And you know what I mean? Like, how can you build something that's actually actionable? Action plans is what we need, not necessarily business plans. That's and I think you're right about the financials too, because that's what keeps people stuck in the mud. Is not having a firm grasp on where they are and what they need. It's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be, holy shit, it's worse than I thought. But at least and it's no longer this scary unknown monster. Like, what the situation is. Okay, how am I going to tackle it? Or it's, oh, okay, I can do that. It's not as bad as I thought, and again, at the end of the day, it's what do I need to do to actually accomplish it? Either way.
That's the whole thing. It's like, And if you have the, oh crap moment, it's like, okay, well, how much do I need to sell to fix it? That's really the next question. That's it. And then get up off your tuchus and go sell some stuff. And you do that by figuring out where your person is right now and what they need to hear to know they're going to be okay. It's really like, I don't mean to break it down like it's simple, but it's kind of like climbing Mount Everest, right? It's one foot in front of the other. That does not mean it's easy.
Right. We talk about all the time that a lot of things are, when you break it down to its basics, very simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
That's correct.
We talk about this in the health coaching space, like just stop eating processed food. Stop eating processed food. Super simple, right? It's not easy. Especially given the circumstances and the environment we're surrounded by and the ever popular, but my kids, they must have Oreos. No, they don't. Okay. So the underlying my kids must have Oreos is really, I don't want to deal with the argument of why there's no Oreos is really where that's coming from. Right. So all of this, everything is equatable. All the things that our coaches go through in building their business are all lessons they can learn and bring with them in their coaching business and helping their clients. They're just transferring this stuff into kind of a different realm.
And it makes it so much more powerful when you do it that way too. Just the honesty. We're all human. We're all in this together. And I think having a coach by your side just makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Absolutely. Really cool. What a fun conversation. Very inspiring. Learned a lot. You know what I liked about it? I just want to say, like, it is very brass tacks. It's very brass tacks. There's not a lot of complexity here, because I know I can see that our coaching brothers and sisters are overwhelmed by the complexity of the business messaging, and so I appreciate you just really bringing it back to simplicity and actionable sort of advice that makes sense.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's how it should be. You love your business. Let's get it out there to people. Yeah.
Love it. So where can people find you?
You can come on over to sarahwalton.com, and that's Sarah with an H. And if you're old enough, like the Walton family on TV, or the Walmart Waltons, no relation. And then I'm also over on YouTube where I put my video podcast is on there. And I also do a weekly show called Sarah Uncut, where heaven help us all, I turn on my phone and we don't know what I'll say. It's a good time. It's a lot of fun.
I love it. YouTube. I love it. Awesome. We will check it out. Thank you so much, Sarah. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope to see you guys soon.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.